Hello, dear family. Today's story is a little different. We're stepping into a snowy winter in 1988 in a small town where one woman thought she'd been forgotten until she changed a stranger's life forever. This is They Left Her at the nursing home on Christmas, so she gave her life savings $500,000 to a stranger. So, grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's meet Evelyn, a woman whose kindness outshone her heartbreak. If this story moves you, hit that like button. And subscribe to join our storytelling family. Let's dive in. Snow falling gently on a quiet main street, a sign reading Pinewood Nursing Home, half covered in frost. It was December 23, 1988 in Cedar Point, Maine. The air was thick with snow, and for Evelyn Harper, the chill outside was nothing compared to the cold in her heart. Evelyn Harper, 80 years old, sat in her room at Pinewood Nursing Home, her eyes fixed on the window. Snowflakes danced outside, piling high on the sill, but she wasn't watching the storm. She was watching the parking lot, empty except for a lone pickup truck buried under white. Her fingers, gnarled from years of chalk dust and grading papers, clutched a small silver locket. Inside was a photo of her daughter, Ruth, taken in 1965, Ruth in a poodle skirt, grinning at a county fair. That was the Ruth Evelyn remembered, not the distant woman who'd moved to Boston and stopped calling. "They'll come," Evelyn murmured, her voice soft but sure. Ruth had promised a Christmas visit, her first in 3 years. Evelyn had spent weeks preparing. She'd saved her pension pennies to buy a new dress, navy blue, Ruth's favorite color, and baked molasses cookies, the kind Ruth loved as a girl. The cookies sat on a plate, wrapped in cellophane, next to a gift, a scarf Evelyn had knitted, stitch by painful stitch, despite her arthritis. She'd even asked Nurse Clara, a kind soul with tired eyes, to hang a wreath on her door. "For Ruth," she'd said. Clara had nodded, but her smile was pitying. Evelyn's room was a museum of her life. A framed photo of her late husband, Tom, in his Navy uniform, sat on the dresser. A stack of old lesson plans from her teaching. Days, 30 years at Cedar Point Elementary, lay neatly in a drawer. She'd taught generations of kids to read, to dream, to be kind. But now, her world was this 10 by 10 room with its beige walls and the hum of a radiator. The locket was her treasure, not just for the photo, but for what it held inside. A tiny fold of bills, $500,000, her life savings, tucked away for something special. She'd always planned to give it to Ruth, for a house maybe, or her grandkids' future. But Ruth hadn't brought the grandkids in years. By noon, the parking lot was still empty. Evelyn shuffled to the common room, her cane tapping the linoleum. The other residents were there, some with families, others alone. Like her, the Christmas tree blinked with cheap lights, and a radio played White Christmas. Evelyn sat by the window, the locket warm in her hand. She overheard 2 aides whispering, "Her daughter called last week, said she'd come. Guess she got busy." Evelyn's chest tightened, but she forced a smile when Clara brought her tea. "She's just delayed," Evelyn said. "Boston's far, the snow, you know." Clara nodded, but her eyes said she'd heard this before. "Sure, Evelyn. Want a cookie?" Evelyn shook her head. The cookies were for Ruth. She dialed Ruth's number from the communal phone, her fingers trembling. It rang, then went to voicemail. "Hi, Ruthie," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "It's Mom. Just checking if you're on your way. I've got your cookies ready. Love you." She hung up, her smile fading. As evening fell, the home grew quiet. Families left, their laughter fading down the hall. Evelyn stayed by the window, the locket heavy in her palm. The snow kept falling, and so did her hope. Christmas Eve dawned, gray and cold in Cedar Point, Maine. Evelyn Harper woke with a heaviness in her chest, the kind that comes when hope starts to crack. The parking lot outside Pinewood Nursing Home was still empty, no sign of Ruth's red station wagon. Evelyn sat at her small table, the plate of molasses cookies untouched, their scent filling the room with memories of Sunday afternoons and Ruth's sticky-fingered giggles. The scarf she'd knitted lay folded neatly, its green yarn vibrant, against the dull beige of her room. The locket rested in her lap, its silver surface catching the dim light. Evelyn opened it, tracing the photo of Ruth, her smile frozen in 1965. The $500,000 tucked inside felt heavier than ever. Not just money, but a lifetime of scrimping, of choosing thrift over comfort, all for her daughter. She shuffled to the common room, her cane steady, but her heart unsteady. The Christmas tree's lights blinked, mocking her with their cheer. Other residents chatted with visitors or played cards, their voices a distant hum. Evelyn took her spot. By the window, the glass cold against her cheek. She watched the snow fall, thicker now, burying the world in white. That's when she saw her, a young woman, maybe 20, shoveling the walkway outside. She wore a thin coat, no hat, her dark hair dusted with snow. Her movements were quick but tired, like she was fighting the cold and something deeper. "Who's that?" Evelyn asked Nurse Clara, who was passing with a tray of hot cocoa. "That's Sarah," Clara said, her voice warm but weary. "She's been cleaning the walks for us this winter. Doesn't ask for pay. Says it's for her mom, who was here a few years back." Evelyn watched Sarah, her breath puffing in the frigid air. There was something about her, maybe the way she kept going, despite the cold, despite the weight in her eyes. Evelyn knew that weight. She'd carried it since Tom died, since Ruth drifted away. She felt a pull, like a thread tugging at her heart. Sarah shoveling, snow clinging to her coat, her face set with determination. By afternoon, the home was bustling with visitors, but none for Evelyn. She tried Ruth's number again. Voicemail. "Ruthie, it's Mom," she said, her voice thinner. "Now. Just hoping you're safe. I'm here." She hung up, her fingers lingering on the phone. The locket burned in her pocket. She glanced outside. Sarah was still there, clearing the last of the snow. Evelyn made a choice. She pulled on Tom's old wool coat, its sleeves too long, and grabbed the scarf she'd made for Ruth. She stepped outside, the cold biting her joints. "Sarah?" Evelyn called, her voice cutting through the wind. Sarah turned, surprised, brushing snow from her face. "Ma'am? You shouldn't be out here, it's freezing." "I'm tougher than I look," Evelyn said, a small smile breaking through. "I'm Evelyn. I saw you working. Wanted to give you this." She held out the scarf, its green yarn soft and warm. Sarah's eyes widened. "For me? It's beautiful. Did you make it?" "For my daughter," Evelyn said, her voice catching. "But she didn't come. I'd like you to have it." Sarah hesitated, her hands red from the cold. I can't take this. It's too special." "It's special because it's given," Evelyn said firmly. "You're out here, doing good. That's worth more than you know." Sarah took the scarf, wrapping it around her neck. Her eyes were bright, not just from the cold. "Thank you, Evelyn. This means a lot." They stood there, snow swirling around them. Sarah shared a bit of her story. Her mom had passed at Pinewood, and she was working 2 jobs to save for college. Evelyn listened, the locket heavy in her pocket. She didn't know why, but she felt it. This girl was the something special she'd been saving for. Evelyn Harper stood in the snow outside Pinewood Nursing Home, her breath clouding in the December air of 1988. The young woman, Sarah, clutched the green scarf Evelyn had given her, her eyes wide with gratitude. The wind howled, but Evelyn felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. Sarah's story, working 2 jobs, saving for college, shoveling snow to honor her late mother, echoed in Evelyn's mind. It was like hearing her own younger self, the girl who'd taught school kids through the 50s, scraping by to give Ruth a better life. The locket in Evelyn's pocket, heavy with $500,000 in folded bills, seemed to pulse. She knew what she had to do. Evelyn and Sarah on a bench, snow falling, the scarf bright against Sarah's worn coat. They sat on a bench near the nursing home's entrance, the cold seeping through Evelyn's coat. Sarah talked about her dream, nursing school, to help people like her mom. "It's expensive," Sarah said, her voice quiet. "I'm saving, but it's slow. Sometimes I think, I'll never get there." Evelyn's heart ached. She'd saved that money for Ruth, for a future that never came. Ruth was in Boston, living a life that didn't include her mother. Evelyn looked at Sarah, her face red from the cold, her eyes full of determination. "You will get there," Evelyn said. "I know it." Back in her room, Evelyn sat at her small desk, the molasses cookies still untouched. She opened the locket, the photo of Ruth staring back. "I tried, Ruthie," she whispered. "I gave you everything." She pulled out the bills, her hands steady despite their tremble. She'd saved this money over decades, skipping new dresses, fixing Tom's old car instead of buying one, eating leftovers. It was meant for family, but Sarah, in her quiet way, felt like family now. Evelyn counting bills, her fingers brushing the locket's photo. The next morning, Christmas Day, the nursing home was quiet. No visitors came for Evelyn. The phone stayed silent. She dressed in her navy blue dress, the one she'd bought for Ruth, and walked to the common room. The staff had set up a small Christmas brunch, but Evelyn's eyes were on the window. Sarah was there again, clearing fresh snow from the path. Evelyn asked Nurse Clara to call Sarah inside. Sarah came in, snowflakes melting in her hair, the green scarf around her neck. "Evelyn, you okay?" she asked, concern in her voice. Evelyn smiled, her heart racing. "Better than okay." She handed Sarah the locket, the bills tucked inside. "Open it." Sarah's fingers fumbled with the clasp. Her eyes widened at the money. "Evelyn, what? This is too much. I can't." "Take this." "You can," Evelyn said, her voice firm but kind. "It's $500,000 for your nursing school. You're going to help people, Sarah. That's what this is for." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "But this is yours, your family." "My family's here," Evelyn said, touching Sarah's hand. "You're doing what I taught my kids to do, work hard, care for others. This is for you." Sarah hugged Evelyn, sobbing softly. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," Evelyn said, her own eyes misty. "Just promise me you'll keep going." The staff, overhearing, started clapping. Nurse Clara wiped her eyes. "You're something else, Evelyn," she said. They helped Sarah count the money, promising to keep it safe until she could deposit it. Evelyn felt lighter, like a weight had lifted. She'd given away her savings, her last tie to Ruth's promises, but she'd gained something bigger, purpose. Sarah hugging Evelyn, the locket in Sarah's hand, staff smiling in the background. That night, Evelyn sat by her window, the snow still falling. She didn't need Ruth's visit anymore. She'd given everything to a stranger, but Sarah wasn't. A stranger, she was hope, a new chapter. Evelyn closed her eyes, Tom's old coat warm around her, and smiled. The snow kept falling in Cedar Point, Maine, as Christmas Day 1988 faded into dusk. Evelyn Harper sat in her room at Pinewood Nursing Home, the empty plate where her molasses cookies had been now holding only crumbs. The locket was gone, given to Sarah, the young woman who'd shoveled snow and shared her dreams. Evelyn's navy blue dress, bought for a daughter who never came, felt both heavy and light. She'd given away $500,000, her life savings, to a stranger who wasn't a stranger anymore. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt unburdened, like the frost on her window had thawed just a little. Evelyn's empty cookie plate, her hands folding the navy dress, snow settling outside. The days after Christmas were quiet, but the nursing home buzzed with whispers about Evelyn's gift. Nurse Clara, who'd seen too many lonely winters, told the staff over coffee. That woman's got a heart bigger than this town. They started a small collection for Sarah. $50 here, a warm hat there, to help her on her way to nursing school. Sarah visited Evelyn daily, the green scarf a constant around her neck. She'd bring a thermos of tea, and they'd sit by the common room's Christmas tree, its lights now dimmer as January loomed. "Evelyn, I've been accepted," Sarah said one morning, her voice trembling with excitement. "The college in Portland. Your money. It's covering my first year." Evelyn's eyes crinkled. "That's my girl," she said, patting Sarah's hand. "You'll make a fine nurse. Just don't forget the little people like me." Sarah laughed, tears in her eyes. "Never. You're the biggest person I know." But not everyone was cheering. A week later, Evelyn got a call. It was Ruth, her daughter, her voice sharp through the phone. "Mom, what's this about giving your money away? Some janitor? Are you out of your mind?" Evelyn gripped her cane, her voice steady. "Ruthie, I waited for you. Christmas came and went. Sarah was here, working, caring. She needed it more." Ruth's silence was heavy. "You were supposed to save that for us, for the grandkids." "You've got your life," Evelyn said softly. "I gave mine to someone who showed up." Ruth hung up, and Evelyn didn't hear from her again for months. It stung, but Evelyn didn't regret her choice. She'd spent decades waiting for Ruth to be the daughter she remembered, the one in the Lockett's photo. But memories weren't promises, and Evelyn was done holding her breath. Evelyn hanging up the phone, a photo of Ruth on her dresser, Sarah studying a textbook. Years passed. Sarah graduated nursing school, her green scarf tucked in her bag at the ceremony. She sent Evelyn letters, then photos, a stethoscope around her neck, a smile that lit up the page. By 1995, Sarah was back in Cedar Point, working at Pinewood as a nurse. Evelyn, now 87, moved slower, her cane more friend than tool. But every time Sarah walked into her room, Evelyn's face lit up like the Christmas tree of '88. One snowy December, Sarah brought news. "Evelyn, I'm being promoted to director here," she said, sitting on the edge of Evelyn's bed. "And I've got something for you." She handed Evelyn a small plaque. It read, "Evelyn Harper Wing, Pinewood Nursing Home, dedicated to the heart that gave hope." Evelyn's hands shook as she traced the words. "You didn't have to do this." "I did," Sarah said. "You gave me everything. This place, it's your legacy now." That Christmas, Sarah brought her own daughter, named Evelyn, to meet her namesake. The little girl, clutching a homemade card, hugged Evelyn tightly. Ruth never came, but Evelyn didn't feel alone. The nursing home, once a place of waiting, was now a home of connection. Sarah and little Evelyn hugging Evelyn, the plaque on. A wall, snow falling outside. Evelyn looked out her window, the same one she'd stared through years ago. The parking lot was full now, but it was the people inside, Sarah, her daughter, the staff, who filled her heart. She'd given everything to a stranger, and in return, she'd found family. Winter settled over Cedar Point, Maine, in 1998, a decade after Evelyn Harper's Christmas gift changed everything. Pinewood Nursing Home had transformed since that snowy day in 1988. The Evelyn Harper Wing, named for the woman who gave her savings to a stranger, bustled with new beds, brighter lights, and a garden where residents planted flowers each spring. Evelyn, now 90, sat in her room, her eyes weaker but her spirit strong. Her cane rested against the wall, and a photo of Sarah and her daughter, little Evelyn, stood proud on her dresser next to Tom's old Navy picture. The locket was long gone, but its memory lived in every smile Sarah brought her. The nursing home's new wing, a sign reading, "Evelyn Harper Wing, flowers blooming in a garden." Evelyn's days were quieter now. She spent mornings reading letters from Sarah, who'd become director of Pinewood and a pillar in Cedar Point. Sarah had turned Evelyn's $500,000 into a nursing degree, a career, and a mission to care for others. She'd visit weekly, often with little Evelyn, now 7, who'd draw pictures of snowflakes and scarves for Grandma Evie. The staff adored Evelyn, slipping her extra cookies or playing her favorite Bing Crosby records. But Ruth, Evelyn's daughter, remained a shadow. After their tense call in '89, Ruth sent a Christmas card once, in 1993, with no return address. Evelyn kept it, but she didn't wait for more. One chilly December morning, a knock came at Evelyn's door. It was Sarah, her green scarf faded, but still worn, holding a newspaper. "Evelyn, you need to see this," she said, her voice bright. The headline read, "Local Nurse Honored for Community Service." Below was Sarah's photo, smiling at a town ceremony. The article mentioned Evelyn's gift, calling it the spark that lit a legacy of care in Cedar Point. Evelyn's eyes misted as she read. "You did this, Sarah," she said. "Not me." Sarah shook her head. "You gave me the chance. This is us, together." That afternoon, Sarah wheeled Evelyn to the common room for a surprise. The staff had gathered, along with residents and a few townsfolk. A small crowd parted to reveal a framed certificate on the wall. Evelyn Harper, Heart of Cedar Point, for unselfish generosity. Little Evelyn, her pigtails bouncing, ran up and hugged her namesake. "It's for you, Grandma Evie," she chirped. Evelyn laughed, her voice frail but warm. "What's all this fuss for an old teacher?" "It's for you," Sarah said, squeezing her hand. "You taught me more than nursing. You taught me hope." The certificate on the wall, little Evelyn's. Drawing pinned beside it, residents clapping. The ceremony was simple. Hot cider, carols, stories of Evelyn's teaching days. A former student, now gray-haired, shared how Evelyn helped him. In the spring of 2000, Cedar Point, Maine, bloomed with new life, but Evelyn Harper's time at Pinewood Nursing Home was drawing to a close. At 92, her body was frail, her steps a whisper of what they'd been. Yet her spirit glowed, warmed by the legacy she'd built from a single act of kindness in 1988. The Evelyn Harper Wing stood proud, its garden bursting with roses planted in her honor. Photos of Sarah and little Evelyn, now 9, lined her dresser, joined by a new one, Ruth, her daughter, standing stiffly at Evelyn's bedside from a visit last month. The locket's absence was no loss. Its gift had multiplied, touching lives Evelyn never imagined. The nursing home garden in bloom, roses swaying, a photo of Evelyn with Sarah and little Evelyn. Evelyn spent her days by the window, watching the world she'd helped shape. Sarah, now Pinewood's director, stopped by daily, often with little Evelyn, who'd read to her from dog-eared books, her voice bright like Ruth's once was. The staff shared stories of Sarah's work, free clinics for the town, scholarships for kids like she'd been. Evelyn would nod, her eyes crinkling. "That's my girl," she'd say, her voice a soft rasp. The $500,000 she'd given Sarah had grown into something bigger, a community bound by care, rooted in one snowy Christmas gift. One April morning, Evelyn felt weaker, her breath shallow. Sarah was there, the green scarf, now frayed, tucked in her pocket. "Evelyn, the town's planning a festival," Sarah said, her eyes bright. "They're calling it Harper Day for you." Evelyn chuckled, a sound like rustling leaves. "Fancy that. All I did was give an old locket." Sarah leaned closer. "You gave me a future. You gave us all one." That afternoon, Ruth arrived, her face lined with years and regret. She'd come twice since her letter, each visit awkward but softer. "Mom," she said, sitting by the bed. "I should have been here. Back then, I mean." Evelyn took her hand, her grip weak but sure. "You're here now, Ruthie. That's enough." Ruth's eyes glistened. "I saw the wing, the garden." "You did all that." "No," Evelyn said. "Sarah did. I just started it." Ruth holding Evelyn's hand, the garden outside, a nurse arranging roses in a vase. Evelyn slipped away that evening, her hand in Sarah's, Ruth by her side. The room was quiet, filled with the scent of roses and the weight of a life well lived. Sarah wept softly, but her tears held gratitude. Little Evelyn left a drawing on the bed, a heart with a locket labeled Grandma Evie. The staff gathered. Outside, heads bowed, as the sun set over Cedar Point. The memorial was held in the garden, under a sky heavy with spring clouds. Townsfolk filled the space, from old students to families Sarah had helped. A local pastor spoke of Evelyn's kindness, how one gift rippled through a decade. Sarah stood, her voice steady despite her grief. "Evelyn saw me when I was invisible," she said. "She gave me everything, her savings, her trust, her heart. This town, this home, is her legacy." Little Evelyn planted a rose, her small hands patting the soil. Ruth, quieter now, added a stone with "Evelyn Harper, Forever Giving" carved into it. She didn't speak, but her presence was her amends. Cut to B-roll, the rose planting, the stone in the garden, townsfolk hugging Sarah. Years later, Harper Day became a tradition. Each spring, Cedar Point celebrated with music, stories, and roses, honoring a woman who turned abandonment into abundance. Sarah, graying now, ran Pinewood with the same heart Evelyn had shown. Little Evelyn, a teenager, volunteered there, her laughter echoing in the halls. Evelyn's locket was gone, but its light endured, in the garden, in Sarah's work, in a town that never forgot. A single act, born of a lonely Christmas, had woven a family from strangers, proving love could outlast even the deepest snow. By 2010, Cedar Point, Maine had grown, its quiet streets now dotted with new shops, but the heart of the town remained the same. The Evelyn Harper Wing at Pinewood Nursing Home stood as a testament to a single Christmas in 1988, when Evelyn Harper gave her locket and $500,000 to a stranger named Sarah. That act, born from the ache of being forgotten, had woven a tapestry of care that stretched across decades. Evelyn was gone, but her legacy bloomed in the roses of the garden, in the lives touched by Sarah's work, and in the annual Harper Day Festival that brought Cedar Point together each spring. A bustling Harper Day Festival, kids running with balloons, a banner reading Evelyn Harper Day. Sarah, now in her early 40s, ran Pinewood with a quiet strength, her green scarf, Evelyn's gift, framed on her office wall. She'd expanded the nursing home, adding a community center where locals could learn nursing skills or share stories over coffee. Little Evelyn, now 19 and a college freshman, volunteered at Pinewood, her laughter a reminder of her namesake's warmth. She'd chosen nursing, too, inspired by Sarah and the woman who'd changed their lives. The garden, once a small patch, was a sprawling haven, its roses tended by residents and school kids who'd heard Evelyn's story. One spring morning, during the 10th Harper Day, a woman arrived at Pinewood. Ruth, Evelyn's daughter, now in her 60s, stood at the garden's edge, her hair gray, her eyes carrying years of regret. She'd visited Evelyn only a few times before her mother's passing in 2000, each meeting heavy with unspoken apologies. Ruth hadn't returned to Cedar Point since, but the festival's growing fame, articles in local papers, a mention on regional news, drew her back. She held a small box, her fingers tracing its edges nervously. Sarah spotted her near the rose garden. "Ruth?" she called, her voice gentle but surprised. "It's been a long time." Ruth nodded, her smile tight. "I read about the festival. About Mom. I needed to see it." They walked through the garden, Ruth's steps slow. She paused at the stone etched with Evelyn Harper, Forever Giving. "I was wrong," Ruth said, her voice breaking. "I left her alone, and she gave you everything. I didn't understand then." Sarah touched her arm. "She loved you." "Ruth, she always did. She saw me too." Ruth opened the box, revealing a photo of Evelyn from the 50s, laughing in a classroom, surrounded by kids. "This was hers," Ruth said. "I found it in storage. I want it here, in her wing." Sarah's eyes softened. "It belongs here. Thank you." The photo placed on a wall in the Evelyn Harper wing, roses in the background, festival music playing. That evening, during the festival, Sarah invited Ruth to speak. The crowd, townsfolk, nurses, kids, gathered under string lights. Ruth stood, clutching the box, her voice unsteady. "My mother was a teacher, a giver," she said. "I wasn't there for her, but she never stopped giving. This place, you, all are proof of that. I'm sorry, Mom, but I'm proud." The crowd clapped, some wiping tears. Little Evelyn hugged Ruth, whispering, "Grandma Evie would love this." Ruth stayed, helping plant a new rose, her hands in the soil alongside Sarah's. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a step, a thread reconnecting a family torn by time. Ruth and little Evelyn planting a rose, Sarah smiling, festival, lights glowing. Years later, the Evelyn Harper wing grew, funded by donations inspired by her story. Sarah retired in 2020, passing the director's role to little Evelyn, who carried the same heart. Ruth visited yearly, quieter now, leaving photos or letters for the wing's memory wall. Cedar Point never forgot Evelyn, a teacher who gave. A locket, a stranger who became family, a legacy that outlasted her loneliness. The memory wall with Evelyn's photos, a rose garden in full bloom, Sarah and little Evelyn laughing. Evelyn's Christmas gift in 1988 wasn't just $500,000, it was a lesson. Love, given freely, even in pain, builds a home that time can't. Erase. By 2025, Cedar Point, Maine, was more than a dot on the map. It was a beacon of kindness, its pulse tied to a single Christmas in 1988 when Evelyn Harper gave her locket and $500,000 to Sarah, a stranger who became family. The Evelyn Harper wing at Pinewood Nursing Home had grown into a sanctuary, its walls lined with photos of Evelyn's life and the lives she touched. The Rose Garden, now sprawling across the grounds, drew visitors from beyond Cedar Point, each petal a nod to a woman who turned heartbreak into hope. Harper Day, the annual festival, was now a regional event, with families sharing stories of generosity under spring skies. The expanded Evelyn Harper wing, roses in full bloom, festival crowds with food stalls and music. Sarah, now 57, had retired as Pinewood's director, her green scarf still framed in her home, a relic of Evelyn's gift. She mentored young nurses, her life a living echo of Evelyn's lessons. Little Evelyn, now 34 and called Evie by all, had taken over as director. With her grandmother's spirit, she ran Pinewood with care, ensuring every resident felt seen. The memory wall in the wing held Evelyn's 1950s classroom photo, gifted by Ruth, alongside drawings from kids and letters from townsfolk. Evie often touched the photo, whispering, "Thank you, Grandma Evie," before starting her day. Ruth, now in her late 60s, had become a quiet fixture in Cedar Point. After years of distance, she'd settled nearby, volunteering at Pinewood's community center. She taught knitting classes, her hands moving like her mother's once did, crafting scarves for residents. Each Harper Day, Ruth stood in the garden, her eyes tracing the stone that read, "Evelyn Harper, Forever Giving." She'd made peace with her past, though some regrets lingered like shadows. "I wasn't there," she'd say to Evie, "but your namesake was. She saved me, too." Ruth knitting with residents, the stone in the garden, Evie reading a letter. One spring during the 25th Harper Day, the town unveiled a new tribute, a statue of Evelyn, simple but striking, in the garden's heart. It showed her holding a locket, her face kind but resolute, carved in bronze. Evie spoke to the crowd, her voice clear. Evelyn Harper didn't just give money, she gave trust, love, a chance. This statue isn't just her, it's all of us, choosing to give when it's hard. Sarah stood beside her, tears in her eyes. Ruth, in the crowd, clutched a scarf she'd knitted, green like the one Evelyn gave Sarah. A local reporter asked Ruth for a quote. She hesitated, then said, "My mother taught me you don't need to be perfect to be good. She gave everything to a stranger, and that stranger brought me back to her." The festival hummed with life, kids planting roses, elders sharing stories, music drifting through the air. A young nurse, inspired by Evie, read from Evelyn's old teaching journal, found in Pinewood's archives. "Kindness is a lesson that never fails," it said. The crowd nodded, some remembering Evelyn's classroom, others knowing her only through the wing, the garden, the statue. The bronze statue, kids planting roses, Ruth smiling with Evie. As night fell, the garden glowed. With lanterns, Evie and Sarah sat on a bench, watching stars emerge. "She'd love this," Evie said, her voice soft. Sarah nodded. "She's here, in every rose, every story." Ruth joined them, quieter now. "I miss her," she said, her first unguarded words in years. Evie squeezed her hand. "She's with us, Aunt Ruth, always." The legacy of Evelyn's locket lived on, not in silver or bills, but in a town that chose connection over loneliness. Cedar Point, shaped by one woman's courage, became a place where no one was forgotten. Evelyn's gift, given in the snow of 1988, had grown into a light that warmed generations, proving that love, freely given, could build a forever home. The garden at night, lanterns glowing, the statue of Evelyn under starlight. Evelyn's story shows us that even in our darkest moments, we can light someone's way. If this moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that warm the heart. Drop a comment. What would you give to a stranger? Check out this video for another tale of kindness. Thanks for being here. See you next time.